Before we get to episode 161, I have a brief message for you. If you'd like to start the year off by making a charitable donation, may I suggest the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Go to supportkeystonechapter.org and make a donation. You can make any amount, $1.79, $8.22, whatever you want. Any amount you give would be greatly appreciated. Again, that's supportkeystonechapter.org. Thank you so much for your help.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 161 of the iCantCU podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for this episode, and I have to apologize. I didn't say that part last week. I was all tied up with the New Year's greetings and things like that I forgot to say that. And just so you know, I appreciate it every time you listen to an episode of the iCantCU podcast. So thank you for that, and I do appreciate you. And I do have a few things to talk about today. And like last week, it'll be a bunch of little things, although one of the things may drag on a little bit. But let's get into it, and we'll go from there. But before we really get into it, as I hit record and I'm listening to the intro, I just wanted to explain myself because one person thought that I might be putting down blind people, and I'm not putting down blind people by saying blind people for dummies. If you're old enough, and I don't know that they still make these books because I don't know who uses books anymore to learn computer programs. They either just go to YouTube or look something up on the internet. Blind People for Dummies was something that Liz actually came up with a few years ago before I went to Podfest. I was getting cards made up, and I wanted to have something that, basically said what the podcast is about. And I know if you're older folks would get it, meaning older, 40s, 50s and on. So back in the day when you wanted to learn Microsoft Word, Microsoft Windows, whatever, you went to the bookstore, Borders or Barnes & Noble, or maybe you had another one, Jean's Books in the King of Prussia Mall. Boy, I'm really going back there. You went to the store and you bought whatever you wanted to learn, PHP for dummies or JavaScript for dummies, whatever. And it was a step-by-step guide on how to work with that program. And they ended up branching out into some other things. But they never had one for blind people because, most sighted folks don't really understand how to help or what to do around a blind person. And when Liz mentioned that to me, I sent her some ideas via email because that's how we communicate. Because when she's at school, she's up and out the door before I'm up, but I'm awake much longer. She goes to sleep early and I'm awake late and so forth. So I sent her these choices. I said, what do you think of these? I said, I need something shorter. And she came up with it, Blind People for Dummies, like the books. And I thought, yeah, that's great. And then I thought, well, I hope nobody is offended by it. And for the most part, people laugh when they see that. But I did, like I said, have one person that said, oh, that's kind of mean. And it's not meant to be mean. And again, I'm not calling blind people dummies. It's not like that Simpsons episode where how to cook 40 humans. It's how to cook for humans. If you remember that Treehouse of Horrors, I think it was, from, again, back in the day. Not new. So let me know if you think I should change that moniker. I kind of like it. I'm doing some SEO work on iCantCU.com, and they suggested that I take that off and put something else like blind support and things like that, and which I have because I want to boost SEO, because I want more domain authority, and I want to try and get some more visitors to the website, because then I get more clicks on links, whether it's affiliate or ads, and then I can make a little money and kind of pay for all this stuff that I do. So enough about that. And maybe in an upcoming episode I'll talk more about the SEO that I'm having done and backlinks and whatnot. But it is working, and the domain authority is going up, so that part is cool. So I want to start off, and I know I'm pretty sure I said last week that I wouldn't have any more fantasy football updates, but I thought, how could I not announce the winner, right? So, again, it was Pug Posse against Astoria Knights. Pug finished in second place throughout the year. He might have had the most points, actually. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Against Astoria Knights, so Frank is Pug Posse, Astoria Knights is Brian. Brian finished, I think, 5th. And they met in the finals. Brian has been in the finals every year, but it's only the second time he's won. He wins when Nick is not against him in the finals. Every other year when he played Nick, he lost. But Brian played me a few years ago in the finals. I lost. He won. And then Brian was the winner this year. So congratulations to Brian, the All Blind Fantasy League champion for the 2021 season. I guess 21-22 season, now that the football season drags on well into the beginning of January, middle of January, with the extra week added. So, and it's sad. I'm so sad that the season is over. It was such a magical season, even though my team got hurt and, gave me all sorts of angst throughout the year with the COVID issues and the injury issues. But nothing will take away the beginning of the season where we got to all meet up. Or at least 9 out of the 12 of us got to meet up in New York, and they did that video. If you want to see that video again, iCantCU.com/football. You can go check it out. And it was just awesome. It was just awesome. And Brian put that together. Just amazing stuff. And it was so much fun. And, it's nice to get to know these guys, because before, you're just kind of going back and forth on the message boards and trash talking there. And, just so much fun. And I will drop in, since we're talking about fantasy, we're also doing fantasy hockey. I won this past week. I don't know how, but I did. I'm back in first place all by myself. Congratulations to me for this week. I am playing the Ice Pugs, which of course is Frank. And it's going to be touch and go. It's projections have it very, very close. And again, with COVID, one day you've got a good team, and then, today I logged in and I see my best guy, Connor McDavid, he's out, COVID. So we'll see what happens. Steven Stamkos out. So hopefully things come around, and I can hold on, because if I lose this week, I'll end up in 4th place, because again, like in football, I don't have the most points, but I have the best record right now. So good luck to Frank this week, and my condolences to Frank. He lost a dog over the weekend. And it's very sad, when you lose a pet. And I know some people, it's like losing a member of your family. So condolences to you, Frank, and hopefully things are going okay over there with you, and out on Long Island. And again, you have to tell me how you're a Washington Capitals fan. I forget about that. I know you like the Caps, but being close to the Islanders' home. We'll talk. So, and while we're talking about Brian, I can mention this. I know I've talked a while back, needing to learn VoiceOver on the Mac. It's very different on the Mac as opposed to on an iPhone or an iPad, because of course on a phone or iPad, you just you drag your finger around, you find what you need. Of course on a Mac, I'm touching my screen now, nothing's happening. At least not that I could see. And I don't hear anything, so I'm assuming nothing's happening, and I hope I didn't just break my computer. So it's very different. There's what's called VoiceOver, just to hit enter. You don't just hit enter. It's Control, Option, Spacebar. Instead of one button, why choose one button when you can choose 3? It almost, in some instances, it's almost kind of like playing Twister. You got to, and again, my fingers are terrible, and we'll get into that bit in a little bit. You kind of have to, you have to hit the Control Option and the Shift keys, while on the other hand hitting, right arrow and down arrow at the same time. So Brian has been teaching me, and I have to tell you, the first day that he taught me, I already knew more then, after trying all these other different ways, watching YouTube and having somebody else try. And it was just great to do it. And so I've been practicing, and I turn it off and on, because there's some things I just don't know. I've only done it, we were only doing it for about an hour and a half. And, so I know enough to get to some things, and then I don't know. And I thought, you know what? Well, I don't know, but I still have a little bit of sight, and I know where I want to be on a page or in a document. So sometimes I figured, just grab the mouse and click in there and see what happens. And then, of course, it read it to me. And the beauty about having VoiceOver read it, as opposed to my normal way of doing things, I usually use text-to-speech. And my text-to-speech, there's no way to increase the speed. So it's just like having a normal conversation, which I don't know if I don't know if I've got something going on, but it's like Homer Simpson, and when he's watching that brainwashing video, he just kind of makes up his own movie in his head, because he's just not concentrating on it. Same thing goes when listening to something at normal speed. I notice when I listen to a podcast at normal speed, I kind of tone it out. Or tune it out, I guess. Not tone. U, not O. And I don't listen too fast, to podcasts. I think 1.5 times, depending. It does depend, because I do listen to a couple where it's a couple of foreigners. One guy is French and one guy is Scottish. And I tried faster, but it was hard. And that's called Authority Hackers Podcast, by the way. It's very good. I really love that. So whether it's YouTube or a podcast, I like to listen at a faster speed. So when you use VoiceOver on the Mac, you get that same speed. And I don't know what it's set at. I haven't looked to see, but it's at a good speed. It's better than, the text-to-speech. So I'm really excited for it, because I felt more confident after that hour to hour and a half with Brian than I ever have, in my life. And I definitely need to learn it, because I can tell that, as days go on, it's just difficult to, and there's one issue. I don't know if you just heard that. My computer just told me what time it is. It tells me the time on the quarter hour. I can't find the function key so that I can adjust or mute my computer. I can adjust the volume, because I had to click something to use VoiceOver. By doing that, I lost the ability to just hit the F keys to turn the volume up and down or to mute it. So I can't find the function key. So sorry about that if you heard what time it was. And I want to say it was 16:45. So 4:45 as I record this. And I am late recording today, because they are doing work on our street, and it was so unbelievably loud. They're digging this trench in our street, and I figured, I'm just going to wait. They're going to be done at 3 or 3:30. So I'd wait, and I waited, and, here we are, 4:45, I'm recording. I did some other things before I recorded, and people were texting and stuff like that. So here I am recording. And again, thanks to Brian. I tell you, boy, I owe him a lot between the fantasy football and then the VoiceOver. So I'll have to find something that I could do for him. And, I am helping him, hopefully with his website for That Real Blind Tech Show. And if you haven't listened, the last episode, if you just look it up, That Real Blind Tech Show, we had a Scottish guy on named Stephen Scott. First of all, this guy had the greatest voice ever. I mean, he just sounded great. It was deep, and it was just awesome. I'd listen to him read the dog food in the store if it were accessible, because he's blind, so he wasn't going to read it. But it was just some of the things that he was saying, and it was kind of funny. Some of the things that Stephen was saying was, it kind of resonated with me, because he was talking about, while he still has a little bit of vision, he got to the point where, he was making the font size on his computer like 72 points so he could read it. And he figured, if the neighbor across the street could read it, it was time that he learned to do either VoiceOver or JAWS or whatever system he was on. And I don't remember which one he was on. But it was a great interview, and he's a funny guy. And of course, with Brian and Ed, they just add to the hilarity. So again, the name of that podcast is That Real Blind Tech Show. If you're not blind, I don't know that you'll like it. But again, this guy's voice is great. And he does a lot. He has podcasts, and he's worked in radio. Obviously, if you heard him, you would get it. You would understand why he worked in radio. So hopefully I'll be able to help Brian out with his website, because he's always talking about products. Hey, I got this new keyboard. Hey, I use this or I use that. And I said to him, I said, if you had even just the Amazon associates, you had an account there where, when you talked about an item, you could talk about it. You just plug that link in on the show notes page. And, what if you made a couple of sales? It's not going to be huge because those keyboards are, I don't know, $50 to $100 in that ballpark. So you're not going to make a lot of money, but you'll make something. And again, it would pay for the podcast hosting. It would pay for whatever. And so hopefully I'll be able to help him with that this year. He does have some domains, so that's good. We just have to get that going. So I'm hoping to help him with that. But between the football and the voiceover, I mean, he's just, as he said when I was on, when they did the football recap episode, and I was on, he said, it's nice to meet your heroes. I mean, he really is a hero. So, just outstanding. And thank you again, Brian, for all that. And I can't wait till next season now. I know we're doing hockey now, but it's it's different. It's just different. Not everybody in the football is in the hockey, and I get it because not everybody knows hockey. I mean, I don't know hockey like I used to either. So last week, moving on. Last week I had talked about medical marijuana, and because of some issues with a prescription that I have for a psoriatic arthritis drug, I was kind of at my wit's end. I'm still at my wit's end. In fact, I guess I'm a little further along, if you can be any further along. So I thought, I can't get my psoriatic arthritis medicine. They said it was going to be shipping out on the 5th of January. Well, today's the 6th. I haven't gotten notification. I've called several times to see what the story is, and there's still a runaround with, we're waiting on your doctor to do this, we're waiting on the insurance company to do that, and it just doesn't seem like it's happening. And it is just killing me. It is absolutely killing me that I can't get this med. My body has been killing me since around the 20th or 21st of December. Now, in all fairness, it's not all due to not having that med called Otezla. Some of it is, seasonal because it's cold. It's gotten colder. And I'll tell you a funny story about the weather in a sec. So even if I were on the medication, I'd still have more pain than normal because it's colder out. And, I'm outside with Ziggy. He loves the outside, as I've talked about. He will lay down in the grass and just flop around out there while I'm freezing my butt off. And so I had to do something. And the only thing other than take more Tylenol or an Advil, which I don't think I can because at the moment I take extra strength Tylenol, which is good for 6 hours. I take an arthritis strength Tylenol, which is good for 8 hours. And then I take right before bed, I take Advil. And I take the Advil before bed because I've always found that helps the next morning when I wake up. Otherwise, I use the Tylenol for during the day. And I've been experimenting. And again, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV like my friend Ken. But, I have to try and see what works. And so, so the Tylenol gives me 14 hours of coverage. So typically I will in the 11 o'clock hour, I will take one of the Tylenols. Now I've been experimenting back and forth. One day I took the arthritis strength Tylenol in the 11 o'clock hour. And then 8 hours later, I took the extra strength Tylenol, just the regular extra strength Tylenol, not the arthritis kind. So, and then that took me to 2 o'clock or so in the morning or so. And again, I stay up late, so I was still up. And then, sometime between 2:30 and 4 o'clock when I went to bed, I would take the Advil. And that's why I don't take the Tylenol any earlier than the 11 o'clock hour because, I want to have 6 hours between the Advil and the whatever Tylenol I take. So if I take Tylenol at 4, that means I could take it at 10, I guess. But then that would leave more of a gap. And usually when I wake up, once I have the shower is good for me for an hour or two. Not excruciating pain, but as one of my rheumatologists once said, takes the edge off. So I had to do something, and I thought, let me try the medical marijuana. It was easy to get an appointment to talk to a doctor. The doctor was not from Pennsylvania. She had a southern accent, and I talked to her, and actually it was nice to speak with her because she also has psoriatic arthritis and gets where I'm coming from. She and her sister both have it, and her sister has written a cookbook about it. And again, food does play a huge role, and I've seen this. I've lived this because if I were to go and have let's say pasta, let's say we go to Maggiano's where I don't usually get a lot of pasta, but Liz gets one of those, as one diet magazine once said, a hubcap full of pasta. She doesn't eat it all, and I thought, I'm going to eat some, so I eat some of it. And what I usually get, it doesn't have a lot of pasta, what I get from there, and I forget what it's called, but it basically has some orzo, and it's got some sort of fish. I don't remember what fish it was. I want to say salmon, but not 100%. It's been so long because of COVID. So I can tell that when I eat a lot of pasta, the next day it's just going to be brutal. I'm just going to hurt. And I can tell if I eat a lot of candy, not usually chocolate, but other candy, jelly beans, which are my favorite. And I'm very excited that Easter is coming because Easter is my favorite candy holiday. I mean, there's just so many good things at Easter time, and looking forward. I love the Starburst jelly beans, and I think they're called Starburst Jumbo jelly beans or something like that. They're big. They have like 20 or 22 calories of jelly bean. They're huge. They're significant. And I wish Jelly Belly would come out with bigger ones. It's just the small ones. You have to eat so many of them, and I can't tell what colors they are. I like to match the colors. I mean, it's a whole lot of problems. So I can tell that when I eat a candy, and so I try not to eat too much candy. Like I had 3 jelly beans today. And now they weren't the Starburst ones because I'm out. And of course you can only get them at Easter time. And hopefully they haven't been discontinued because that is the story of my life with foods that I like. So there's some other brand that we've had. And we didn't even buy these last Easter. These are from like 2 Easters ago. So as my dad used to say on the signs, factory fresh, because they just came in from the factory. Who knows how long they've been sitting in the factory, though. So I won't eat too many of those, and because I know tomorrow it'll be brutal. So it's not, all my pain is not always from the lack of meds, and it does fluctuate again depending on the weather, not just cold and hot, stormy. And last week was brutal with, I think it was cloudy and rainy most days. Or in the instance earlier this week, we had some snow. We're expecting snow on Friday, tomorrow. So that also plays a part, but it was just brutal. I mean, like at the end of the day, and I'm not saying that as a metaphor, I mean, literally at the end of the day. Well, and again, it's probably not the end of my day because it's after dinner. Let's just put it that way. After dinner in the, prime time hours, I am just in agony. My knees are killing me. My hands are killing me, wrists, feet. And when it's bad, as I said last week, I can't turn a doorknob. I can't turn a doorknob because I can't grip it. The outside of my hand from my wrist to the first knuckle in my thumb, it just is it's horrible. The pain is horrible. So, to open a Ziploc bag, and not the Ziploc with the zipper part, because that I can actually do, the kind that you pull apart. Hard for me to do, because my fingers hurt so much. And so I had to try something. So I got the medical marijuana. I got the card. I got approved for the card, last Thursday, I guess it was. So a week ago. I didn't get the card. They said it would take 2 to 3 weeks to get the card in the mail. I actually got it already, which is hilarious between the holiday and everything else. But Jacob has a medical marijuana card. So he got me, we looked up what I needed to take. And that's the other thing, basically you're playing doctor on yourself. Found what they had at this dispensary. And so I got it. It was 10 pills for $30. I took one on Saturday, New Year's Day. And I absolutely hated it. I felt horrible. I had trouble walking. My balance was off. I felt a little nauseous. And worst of all, I still hurt. It didn't help with that. So, if it helped with the pain, I would endure that other stuff. But it didn't even help with that. So, and Liz said to me, why don't you ask the person behind the counter? I thought the person behind the counter is a stoner that has the okay now to sell to other people. That's the only thing. And, Jacob had asked, and the girl said, yeah, try one. And if that's not enough, take another one. I can't imagine if I took two. I just can't even imagine how that would be. So I am still waiting, just like with the lack of vision. I'm still waiting for a miracle, and that's, I don't want to get caught up like I have with devices and things to help me, quote unquote, see stuff. You get pitched when you go to, you see a device. Oh, it'll help you do this, 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 and this, and you think, hey, it's this miracle thing. I tried these glasses out once from a company who I love. The people were just great. The company's called eSight, ESIGHT, and they're based in Ontario, Canada. Not sure if it's Toronto or not, so I'm not going to say Toronto. But these people were awesome. Saw them at an NFB convention. I knew about them from before that because they had someone traveling around where you can go and try them out. And I thought, man, these are great. And it's this device that you put on your face. They kind of look like VR goggles. And when I used them in this office that they had rented in Philadelphia, in Center City, I thought, man, these are great. I'd love to try these at home. And at the time, I don't think they had if they had an in-home trial, it was very expensive. It was like you had to pay $500 and it was not refundable. Though if you did buy the goggles, the glasses, you could, use that $500 towards it. Well, when I saw them at the NFB convention in Las Vegas back in 2019, they had lowered that to $100 for a 1-week trial, in-home trial. I thought, oh, this is great. And of course, the week that I got them, all the baseball teams in the area were out of town, meaning the Phillies and the Wilmington Blue Rocks minor league team, the Trenton Thunder. There was a team that was at home. I want to say it was the Reading Phillies or the, I don't even think the Iron Pigs were, I don't think they were that close. So wherever it wasn't close. And I want to say it was the Reading Phillies. And I thought, I'm not going to make Liz drive all the way there and I'm going to walk around with these things on my face. And, it was before the VR glasses were really a thing. And so I didn't, but I did go to the movies with them and they didn't work. I couldn't see what was on the screen because the movie was, it was basically like if you took a camcorder into the, into the movies, it just wasn't light enough. So, and again, the stuff isn't cheap. I want to say the price on those was about $6,000, $6,500. So again, not worth the reward that you were going to get. It was just frustrating. And there's a lot of things that over the years that I've tried that I wish I didn't buy. You have buyer's remorse and sometimes buyer's remorse is just because you spend too much money on something. This is because it just isn't what it, listen, when I bought those glasses, I thought, hey, I'm going to wear these glasses and Liz and I are going to go to a field. We're going to throw a baseball around and, whatever. And of course that's not going to happen, and so I'm trying to not do the same thing with the psoriatic arthritis to try anything and everything. I was watching TV earlier and, there was a commercial for Salonpas, which we've looked for in the stores, and every drugstore we've been in looking for the COVID tests. We also have looked there, and they haven't had it. So I don't know if more people are in pain or if there's a supply chain thing going on with that. But I thought that. But I was watching TV earlier, and I also saw a commercial, and now I can't remember what it's. Oh, Relief Factor. I thought, $20 for 3 weeks. Should I try it? And then I started thinking about this very thing. Am I going to just be chasing things just to feel better? And that's, sometimes that's what goes on. And I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. So we'll see. And of course, I'll let you know. But unless somebody can point me in another direction, I think I'm done with the medical marijuana. Who knows, though? Maybe if I get desperate, maybe I'll go back to it. I just didn't like the way I felt. And, I guess if I do more research into it, maybe I could find something else. But I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I just can't envision using it again.
Blind People for Dummies Tip of the Week.
And this is actually for blind people, not for sighted folks. Although if you know someone who is blind and you're listening, this could be very helpful. I spoke to someone this week who is a new member of the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. His name is Mark. And we were talking for a while. He wanted to pay his membership dues. Harriet had helped him out. Harriet is the president of the Keystone chapter, and Harriet had helped him out. He wanted to, join kind of to thank her and to support her because of what she had done to help him. And before I had found the NFB, I remember asking my eye doctors, and none of them knew, hey, you're legally blind, you're going blind, one day I'm not going to see. I know that. Hopefully it won't be, any day soon, but I can tell. I know now, like, as I mentioned earlier, each day, today I stepped on Ziggy. I didn't see he was there. He snuck up and, I didn't hear the click clack of his nails on the wood floor. And, and I don't know if I stepped on his tail or, just nudged him or whatever. I mean, he didn't yelp or anything, and he rarely does. But one thing that you need to do if you are blind or visually impaired and you have no idea what's happening in your life, you got to find an organization. And I'm not saying it's got to be the NFB. I mean, that's the one I picked, and I'm very happy about it. But you have to pick someplace where you can go and be with other folks who are in the same boat and know what you're going through and, have an idea. Like when you say, well, I did this, but it didn't work. Somebody else has done that exact same thing. And, now maybe has a solution. Hey, why don't you try this? Or here's how I do it. And sometimes, that might work and sometimes it might not. Again, everybody has a different way of doing things. And I always laugh at that because Liz and I sometimes arrive to the same answer different ways, whether it's a math question or whatever. And it always makes me laugh, but it just proves that there's more than one way to get to the right answer or to get to the best answer. And if you are blind or visually impaired and you don't know what to do, go on the computer, get somebody to go on your computer and find something. National Federation of the Blind, American Foundation for the Blind, and there's a bunch of others that have the word blind in it that you can find. And or just find a support group locally. I know my friend Lisa, who I co-host White Canes Connect with, she's in a group that meets, I think at Shea Eye Institute, and I'll have to ask her about that. But they get together and, there's a Philly meetup for the blind, which is more of a social thing. But again, it's a whole bunch of people who can't see and who are in the same boat. They might be at different stages. Maybe they've been born with it and you're not. And it's funny how different people are who are born blind than who have lost their sight somewhere along the way. And, and then there's people like me who has been visually impaired his whole life, but still is not ready to not see. It's just interesting how people are. If you're sighted and you lose your vision, somewhere along the way, I know a few folks have talked about this. There is a time of depression and you don't know what to do. Hey, my life is over. It's not over. And you can listen to a recent episode we did of White Canes Connect. I think it's episode 16, where we talked to someone named Christine Palmer, who had gone to her first National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania State Convention, and she couldn't believe it. It was so moving for her. And to hear her tell the story about it, it was just like, hey, look at all these other people here can't see either. But yet here we are. We all made our way. Not, only a handful of the people in the room, of the 80 to 100 people in the room, were from Harrisburg. Everybody else traveled. Somehow they got there. Sometimes they used help with, a family member or a friend. Sometimes they just went on their own on the train or wherever, car, bus, whatever. Find an organization. You don't have to be active in it. You just listen and talk to the people. And again, it doesn't have to be, it could be, look on Meetup and see if there's a blind group in your area that meets. So, maybe you start off and they just do coffee or whatever. I know Philly Meetup for the Blind is great because we usually do stuff. We go places, again, not during COVID, but a lot of fun. And so if you're in the Philadelphia area and you haven't tried that, there's a WhatsApp group for that, or for the group. Again, search Philly Meetup for the Blind. The person who started it is Trish Monder. Now, she is not blind. She does have a blind daughter, and that is what got her going. And Trish has done a lot of things. And you might have heard me speak about Trish because when we've done training, I've helped her do training for different museums and things like that. So, if you need contact information for Trish, you want to join that group, just reach out to me. 646-926-6350 or iCantCU podcast at gmail.com, and I'll put you in touch with her and get you on the WhatsApp group. I actually have shut off notifications for that because they were coming in all hours of the day and night. And again, I am usually up most of those hours, but sometimes I'm in the middle of doing something and it distracted me. Just like when I had started to hit record on this, I started getting texts, and even though my phone was in airplane mode, my computer was still dinging, and it threw me off. But you do have to find someplace. And just to follow up a little bit more with Mark, we were talking for a while, and I was mentioning to him, I had sent him an email about the fantasy football. Maybe I talked to him about it when we were on the phone, but he said to me, I said, will you be coming to the meeting on Saturday? And the Keystone chapter meets the second Saturday of every month. And this is our Saturday coming up. And our meeting is at the Penn Museum, which, again, I absolutely love. I've mentioned it a million times. If you're ever in Philadelphia, go to the Penn Museum and check it out. A lot of cool stuff there. If you're into anthropology and archaeology, old stuff. 5,000 years old, Egyptian stuff and Chinese stuff, and just very cool stuff, and all sorts of artifacts, and just great. So make your way over there if you can. Very easy to get to if you're in Philadelphia or the local area. There's a train station literally around the corner from it, and it's the Penn Medicine Station. Easy to get to. I think admissions is $9. But again, worth it, and you could spend a lot of time in there. A very cool building too. So give it a shot and take a look around. It's a big building, so even during COVID, I feel pretty safe there. Which brings me to the next thing to mention. Well, let me finish the thought on Mark. So I asked him if he was going. And he said, "Oh no, I'm not going to go to that." And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Are you going?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, you're very brave." And I said, "Well, I don't know if I'm brave or I'm stupid. I guess we'll find out, 10 days after the meeting whether I have COVID or not." And again, I'm vaxxed and boosted, but that doesn't seem to really matter anymore because it seems like even if you're vaxxed and boosted, you still get it. So hopefully it's not enough to kill you, but still seems like you get it. And he says, "You're brave." And I said, "I'm brave." I said, he had told me earlier in the conversation that he was in the Army, in the infantry. And I said, "I'm brave." I said, "People were shooting at you." And it made me laugh because my mom was terrified of flying. And of course, my dad flew in World War II as a tail gunner on B-17s and B-24s. And he said, "Why would you be afraid to get on this plane? Nobody's shooting at us." And, for the most part, that's true. But anymore, you don't know. You don't know. And my dad always made fun of my mom for, having that fear when, you get on, again, you could always have a mechanical problem, of course, but you get on, nobody's shooting. And to follow up with my dad actually was shot down and spent 13 months in a POW camp in northern Europe, Germany, Poland, places like that. So he always thought it was funny that my mom had this fear when nobody was shooting at the plane. And just like I laughed at Mark the other day when he told me I was the one that was brave when he was in the he was in the service in the infantry. And I mentioned, about some other things with the NFB, and I told him the convention this year, if everything goes okay, is in New Orleans. And he said, oh, it might as well be on the moon. I couldn't make it there. I said, oh, I think you could. But first he has to get training, and that's been a problem because of COVID, because, you can do a lot of things online. You can learn a lot of things, but to have an instructor with you to teach you mobility, and mobility for blind folks is, using the white cane, how to sweep, how to tap. And I do kind of a mixed way. And again, you do what works. I use the pencil grip a lot more than I use the other, actually sweeping, because it's less painful for my hand. And it also makes it, a little easier on my hand and wrist, because I just kind of, I kind of use my finger to move the cane back and forth. So it was nice to talk to Mark, and I'm looking forward to meeting him one day in real life at one of our meetings. And, and I guess I'll report back on next week on how the in-person Keystone chapter meeting went this week. And we are, like I said, we are expecting snow for tomorrow. Hopefully it doesn't really mess things up on Saturday, because as I've mentioned in other episodes, when you're walking with a white cane, the change of sound really makes a difference. Even when there's rain, cars sound different. It's harder for me to tell how much closer they are, or how much, than when it's not wet out. Your feet make a different sound when you're walking. The cane makes a different sound when you're tapping or dragging it, which, when I am sweeping with a full, holding on with my hand, I do drag it, because to lift it up and down, it just hurts too much. So I usually just drag it back and forth. With snow, it's even that much worse, because snow, muffles a lot of sounds. And if there's snow, if it's not a clear path and, I'm constantly hitting the snow, that just makes things hurt. So I am going to the meeting on Saturday, unless Harriet says we're not going to have it in person, but I'm looking forward to that. Again, hopefully, obviously, as my dad used to say, be careful, but don't be afraid. And that's what I plan to do. I'm going to take some Lysol wipes with me, and, wipe down my cane 18 times, because I'm sure I'll touch a lot of things that I don't want to touch, and wipe my hands down, and wipe the wipe the cane down, and whatever else I have on my person that needs to be wiped down. But looking forward to the meeting. I've actually only been out of the house once this year. It is the 6th as I'm recording this. Went to the Walden School to do something with Liz, because we were then going to Target to pick up a couple of things. And that's the only time I've been out since the beginning of the year, other than taking the trash out to the curb and the recycling. So yeah, you can see what kind of life you can see why I might want to get out. So I am looking forward to that. I am not going to lunch, though. That is talking with my friend Lisa earlier. Taking the mask off to eat in public, not going to happen. So I'll let you know. Like I said, next week, if you hear me coughing a little bit, maybe I shouldn't have gone. But it is something that, it's the first meeting of the year is elections, and I'm going to be hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, reconfirmed or reelected as treasurer. Not something I love, but, I do love the stuff that I do, other stuff that I do for the organization. If that's what I've got to do, that's what I got to do. So again, and while we're talking about the Keystone chapter, you could always support the Keystone chapter. Go to supportkeystonechapter.org. You can punch in any amount you like. It's very cool, because you can put in, as I said in the intro, $1.79, $8.22, $20.22, whatever you want. we do lose some money on the transaction. I think it's a 30 or 50 cent transaction fee, and there's a percentage that also comes off. But again, anything you give is greatly appreciated, and it goes for some good things, like I mentioned last week when I talked about St. Lucy's. I will touch briefly on one thing before I move on, and that is the Hulu show Only Murders in the Building. I had watched that with Liz and Jane, and I mentioned that episode 7 was horrible for me because it was dealing with a character who was deaf, and it was brutal because some scenes had no sound. And of course, since I couldn't see, I had no idea what was going on. Liz and Jane are reading the subtitles to me and trying to tell me what's going on, but I just hated it. Episodes 8, 9, and 10 were all great, like the rest of the episodes, other than episode 7. So if you haven't watched that, and I haven't checked to see if it is described. I meant to do that for this episode, and I completely forgot about it, as usually is the case if I don't put a reminder on my phone. So Only Murders in the Building. Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez, Tina Fey has a couple of appearances in it. Very funny, good show. Give it a look. It was I was sorry that we finished it, and hope the next season doesn't take too long to come out. Still waiting on Jack Ryan to come back after 18 months or 2 years, whatever it is, since that's been on. That's on Amazon if you're interested, if you want to go back and watch that. But that was a show that is a show that is right up my alley, and I absolutely love that, with John Krasinski as Jack Ryan. So I think that is all I have for you this week, which is crazy because I didn't think I'd have that much for you, to be honest. So I do appreciate you listening to episode 161 of the iCantCU podcast. Remember, you can always reach out, 646-926-6350. You have up to 3 minutes. Please leave your name and your town, and let me know your question, your comment, your show idea, anything you've got on your mind. Please always rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you can rate and review. And if you can give me 1 star, that's fine. But I'd really appreciate it if you said, here's 1 star because blank. I'm ugly, I sound terrible, whatever. Just please let me know why. I just want to know why. I want to make it better. You can also reach out to me via email, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, show notes over at iCantCU.com. For this episode, they will be at iCantCU.com/161. Remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. iCantCU.com/161 is where you can find it. Again, I really do appreciate you listening. And I don't say that enough, maybe. Maybe I say it too much. But I do appreciate it. I hope you're staying safe and you're staying away from Omicron, or as Liz calls it, Omnicron. I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the iCantCU podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.